What's up, guys? Ryan from H&S Motorsports here. Today we are going to go through the Stacyc 1216 troubleshooting. We're going to try to show you how to differentiate what problem might be with what. We know there's error codes on the throttles, and sometimes people don't get any issues with that. So we're going to dive into this. We'll show you the difference between a brushed and a brushless motor and how to try to isolate what issue is what. So we'll bring you over here to the table, we'll lay them out, and we'll go through different ones. We'll show you what's a bad motor, bad controller, bad throttle, and how you can kind of test which component is good or bad. That way you know what part you need to get. Okay, guys, so right here we have on the right, this is a brushless motor. So you can see right here from Stacyc, the part number 420038. This is what the brushless motor replacement would be. Now, if your bike already has a brushless motor, this is all you would need. However, if you have a brushed motor and you want to convert, you do have to get the motor kit, because this pinion gear is different, and then the reduction gearbox that goes on is different because of the pinion size. You can see, and I'll bring it up right here, that way you guys can see the pinion size. There we go. So you can see right there the size and the pinion ring gear. So again, this is the brushed motor, and then this right here is the brushless. So that way, before you start troubleshooting, trying to figure out which is which, now you know exactly what motor is what. So for the first part of this video, we're going to start working on the brushed motor, and we're going to show you how to double check a couple common things on brushed and how to try to isolate if it's the motor, the controller, or if it's your throttle. So we're going to get the brushless motor out of the way. We're going to be using a stock Stacyc battery, and then we will go through and try to pinpoint what the problem might be. Okay, guys, so we have our brushed motor hooked up right here. Everything works. This is a stock Stacyc throttle, stock Stacyc battery. So we'll turn it on. We'll see it's currently in red mode, and the motor works fine. Now, one of the most common problems is this fuse. If this fuse goes bad, and we'll pull it to simulate a bad fuse. This is, again, just a standard blade 40 amp fuse. If you guys can see, 40 amp fuse, that's all it is. So fuse is gone, simulating a blown fuse. We'll turn it on. Still sounds like normal, but when you go to give it gas, or sorry, throttle, you can see that all the lights come on, but the motor does not move. Now, this is one of the most common problems. You can go ahead and swap this for another 40 amp blade fuse, or there is a reset breaker type fuse that's found on Amazon. A lot of people like those, especially if you blow these very easily. The auto reset breaker, once you let it cool, it'll actually go back, so you don't have to take the entire bike apart to get to the fuse. And that does take a little bit more power to trip than a stock one, so that's why a lot of people like running that. However, because it does take a little bit more power and heat to trip, you do run the risk of damaging the controller. So kind of a little give and take there, but a lot of people do like those and use those. So we'll go ahead and pretend like we just replaced the fuse. And now it should start like normal. So that's going to be most common on the brushed motor. Now what we're going to do is, I have a throttle right here that is bad. So this is our good throttle. Now this right here I know is a bad throttle. So we'll plug it in and we'll see what codes we get. Okay, so we'll turn it on. So see the blinking yellow? As soon as we turn it on, that's indicating that the throttle is not sending the proper voltage to the controller. So we know that this throttle is bad because of that. Now, the best way to try to rule out if it's the throttle or the controller, try to go into programming mode. So you go full speed, turn it on, you can see yellow. But you can see as you try to go to program the speed modes, nothing is happening. So this means that the throttle is not setting the correct voltage to the controller to tell it what speed mode is set. So this is the best way to rule out if it's a throttle, even if it's not getting the yellow error code. And if you're not too sure and it turns on, always try to go into programming mode, and then you can try to figure out if it's the throttle or not. Now, while you're riding, if this yellow light comes on, that does mean that it's overheated. So this is kind of a shared use code with that. But right off the bat, we can see, and because we know this throttle is bad, we'll go ahead and change the throttle. We'll go ahead and put this working one back in. And then we will verify. Yep, working fine, no problem. So that's how we were able to identify so far that the fuse was bad, the throttle's bad. Now, what are we going to do if the motor is bad? How do we check the motor? Well, I'll show you guys exactly how to do that. We'll go ahead and disconnect everything right here, because we don't need that. So we will use 2 little alligator test clips. You can use whatever you'd like for this next test, but this is a brushed motor and only works on the brushed motor. So we're going to go ahead and jump from positive, negative, and we're going to go ahead and test it here on the motor. So when we get our leads hooked up here, we're now going to be able to tell if the motor works. So since this is a brushed motor, it's a DC direct current motor. That way the 20 volts from the battery is going to go ahead and turn on the motor, and we could test this motor. Yep, there it goes. Jumped right out of my hand. So that way we could tell the motor spun, the motor worked, and there's no problems. So let me hold it like a man this time. That way it doesn't jump out. Okay, so I'm holding it. There we go. So that's simulating full speed from the throttle. So now we know the motor is good. So if you've gone through these troubleshooting steps and the throttle works, it changes speed modes. Your fuse for the brushed motor is okay. And if you've jumped the motor and you've gone to the controller with those, or from the battery to the motor with those leads, then most likely your controller is going to be bad. Now there is another code, and I'll see if I have this over here, but if you're getting green and yellow that flash after you turn it on, that's a motor communication error. So you want to double check and make sure everything works, everything is connected, there's no pinched wires anywhere. And again, everybody asks what's this used for. I believe this is for programming, but this is not used on the Stacyc bike. You don't have to worry about plugging that into anything. So there we go. That is going to be the best way on how to test what on this components are bad. Again, the throttle, fuse, brushed motor jumping, that only leaves the controller out. Those are really all it could be. Again, if you do want to test your battery, make sure that it works. Use a voltmeter, hook it up. You want to be above 17 volts and no more than 20.7 or so volts. So as long as your voltage reading is in there, your battery is going to be okay. If you are getting red, then that means you are having a battery issue. It could be either the circuit, the recognition circuit from here to the controller. That's what these green and red wires are part of. This is for the battery recognition circuit. So if this circuit in the battery is bad, it will show red on the throttle. And the best way to check that is by swapping batteries. So we will go ahead and swap over to the brushless motor next. Okay guys, I actually went ahead and went through my stash of parts over here that I collect from everybody, and right here we actually have a bad motor right here. So plugged everything up, we know the throttle's good, we know the battery's good, so we'll go ahead and turn it on. So here we go, we can hear the squeal. This motor is bad. So this will, oh, you can smell the smoke. Oh yep, see, there it goes. Yep, you guys can smell the smoke. The motor on this one just went out. So that's one of the problems you guys might have. For this one, you can buy just the brushed motor kit if that is what you need. They don't call it a brushed motor, they call it a 16EDRIVE motor combo with the ESC and motor. Now this will fit any brushed motor in the bike, 12 and 16, they're both the same, it just has to have this motor already. Okay guys, we're back. So what I've done is I've hooked up a brushless motor, again the same battery, the same throttle, and we have a brushless motor here. I have my little rag out because we're going to be taking this motor apart real quick because there is a problem with it. So let's figure out what it is. Let's try to isolate the issue. Now again, this would all be in the bike. So if you turn it on, it turns fine like normal, but when we try to give it some throttle, something's binding. So you can go ahead and pull out this part of the 90 degree and you can inspect if there's any broken teeth, any chips, any kind of issues. This is how you would be able to determine if your 90 degree has gone bad. We'll put that to the side. Now by taking that out, we'll see if maybe that had seized. So we'll try to give it throttle again. Nothing. So what we're going to do next, turn it off. We're going to take these screws out and then we're going to inspect this planetary reduction gearbox. Okay, so we have the motor screws out. We'll go ahead and take the motor out. Pinion looks okay. We'll see how this planetary reduction gearbox here feels. We'll put this bearing back in. Okay, so we went ahead and put that gear back in. So now let's try the motor by itself. So this way we can try to isolate what the problem might be. Turn it on. Oh. So we can see it's not working. So it could be the motor. There's something definitely in there. It could be the magnets, the winding, something like that. But we can tell the motor is bad. And you can smell it as well. Oh, you can see the smoke coming out of it. Let's see. Yeah. There's a smoke right there. So this motor is bad. There's either a bad magnet or a winding, but it's shorting out and the motor will not work. So we know that this motor is bad. Now that you have this taken apart, it's always best to take these apart, grease them, because if your back wheel on the Stacyc will not roll backwards, most likely it's going to be because of this reduction gearbox. So if we try to spin, oh yeah, see, this is really hard to spin here. It should not be that hard. You want to have this free flowing like butter. So this whole thing will have to be gone through and replaced, or at least cleaned. But if you don't have an extra set of the reduction gearboxes and the 90 degree gearbox, it's always going to be best to have these. Now again, like I said, these are going to be specific. This planetary reduction gearbox right here is specific for a brushless motor because that pinion gear is different. So I'll show you again in case you missed the other part of the video or skipped it. This pinion right here on the brushed is bigger. So this is the only part that is specific for the planetary reduction gearbox. This 90 degree right here is the same for both 12 and 16 models. So again, universal, specific. So now we know that this battery is bad, or sorry, this motor is bad. We'll go ahead and salvage the screws and the plate to save it for someone that needs it. And then we will desolder these wires here. And this is also the communication sensor for the motor. So we'll go ahead and unplug that. And we can go ahead and salvage this controller because this controller is probably still good. Okay guys, next up here, we're going to simulate the red error code. Now this is going to be if you have a bad battery. There is a recognition circuit built in, to the stock battery here. So what we've done is we've just jumped the positive negative from the stock battery plug over to a Makita battery that we have. So we're going to turn this on. And this is going to be if you try to wire it just like me with trying to bypass the stock battery, or if your stock battery does have an issue with its recognition circuit chips inside. This is what it's going to look like. So we'll turn it on and you'll see the red. And you can hear that beeping. So this is either going to be hot battery or an issue with the battery in the recognition circuit. Now, it could be from running an aftermarket battery like we have right here. We're running a Makita battery. This is going to be the error code for that. Now, if you do want to run an aftermarket battery, we do have battery adapters on our website that do have the recognition bypass, so that way you can hook up whatever battery you want. But be aware that does void the Stacyc warranty, and it does remove the protections that are built into the stock battery, because it does limit the power out and even cut the bike in if there's any issues with the controller, if it's too hot, too much of a load, or the controller needs to cool off. The battery communicates with the controller, and that's how it shuts it off. So next up, what we'll do is we will get the green and yellow code. Okay, so next up, we've got the brushless motor, battery. We know everything here has been working good. What I've done is I've disconnected these sensor wires. Now, if you get this yellow and green code, go through there and make sure none of these wires are pinched. Make sure everything's okay, and we'll go ahead and turn it on. Okay, so we're going to try to go ahead and go. We're in red speed mode. Oh no, we're getting yellow and green flashing. So I know, because we've obviously disconnected this, but you don't know what it is. So if you want to try to figure out what it is it your battery, is it something else? Turn it off. Turn your throttle full speed. Turn it on. And look at that, we are going through the speed programming mode. So what we want to look for here is red, yellow, green. So this way we know the throttle is working and sending the correct voltage back to the controller. So we'll put it on green setting. Same thing. So if you get this green and yellow, that does mean you will have to buy a new motor controller combo, because that's what that error indicates. It is a motor communication issue. So it could be a damage with the board, the sensor wire board inside the motor. So that's what the problem is going to be. So that fix will be a new motor controller. And that's pretty much it. Again, if you're riding and you get yellow, then that means it's overload and it's getting hot, so it wants the bike to cool. If you're getting green and yellow, then that is what we just did here with the motor communication error. If it's red, it's going to be something with the battery. It's going to be a bad communication with the controller to the battery chip inside. Remember, there is a fail-safe protection here. And then if it's flashing green, then that means the battery is either too high of a voltage or too low of a voltage. So you have to double check your battery. Now, don't put it on the charger and say, okay, it's good. What you have to do is use a voltmeter and test the red and the black, so positive, negative, and you want to see what the battery voltage is at. That's going to tell you if your charger is working and if your if your battery is low. So those are going to be the main ones. There are going to be some other issues that come across, some random ones. So the best thing to do is, if you're ever in doubt, go ahead and check your throttle. And if we are able to get into programming speed mode, this is going to be the best way to check the throttle. So batteries don't always go out. It's more common that's going to be the throttle or on the motor controller. Now, if you do want to get a new throttle, we do have stock Stacyc ones, or we do have our in-house replacement, and these do have a quick release right here. So that way, if you want to pull the throttle off, you don't have to take the entire bike apart. All you have to do is just unplug right here. And we did put the lock right here closer towards the base. So right here there is a slimmer design. So you could just kind of see the little difference there. And then we also have a 19mm throttle that should be here soon. Time of making this video, it's not out yet, but it will be here probably in about the next couple weeks. And again, everything does function just like stock. So I'll go ahead and show you guys with our throttle to show you the difference. So we'll go ahead, turn it on. So we do have, there we go. So So on this controller, we do have 2 green bars, same exact as Stacyc. So we'll go ahead and turn it off. We'll go into our programming setting, just like normal. And now you can go ahead and program your speed mode however you want. So we'll go ahead and put it on red. And there we go. So we'll turn it off. Now we'll pretend that we got a brand new motor controller combo. We'll go ahead and plug this in, turn it on, and we are golden. There we go. So if you guys got any questions, go ahead and let us know in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe and share us. That way other parents know how to fix these bikes without having to throw parts at it. We know they do get a little expensive. So reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, or our website, hsmotorsports.net, and we'll go ahead and get you guys taken care of. Thanks, guys. Tune in to the next video we'll have soon.